Hey everybody, what do we got in front of us today? Well, what we've got is a nice little mechanical fuel pump that belongs on a Kohler. This one comes off of a Kohler 18 horse. The problem is that through time it was taking harder and harder to start. It wasn't the carburetor, it wasn't spark plugs and stuff, because good upkeep and maintenance. What I did do is I did crank it, and seeing that when I was fuel was coming in, it was sometimes we'd get some fuel and sometimes you wouldn't, especially if these sit for a long period of time. The one thing I like to do when it comes to this, and I'll explain on the inside, but they stick a lot, especially the older ones. This one happens to be 25 years old, but what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and split it, and I'll explain why I put like Marvel's Mystery Oil and stuff like that in there. So basically all you got, 4 little screw bolts, and you just yank them out. There's a diaphragm in there. There's 2 plungers that are in there. These are real easy to go ahead and go back and repair. You just gotta hope like heck that the inside of the inlets and the inlet plunger and everything is okay. But other than that, it's pretty good. You won't really get Googled with a whole bunch of stuff, but see right there, that little chamber, and you got the diaphragm that comes right here. And basically what it is that diaphragm goes up and down with the actuation of the engine, and it goes ahead, and what it does is that it turns around and will pull the gas in here and put it out here to the carburetor. So what happens is over time, like when it goes to pull, there we go, this little chamber right here inside will get stuck. And the same with this, sometimes these will get stuck on the diaphragm. So then what happens sometimes, if you have pressure, it could cause, depending on the elevation of the tank, could still be letting gas into your lawnmower. So what I normally do, come down here, because see, if you look at it, it's not seated right anyways. So sometimes you just gotta kind of work it around a little bit, but it's just over time, wear and tear. But you'll see where it's been sitting on this, it's got a nice little ring around here, and then in here, the diaphragm, it's got a little setup, and it can get a little bit gummy in there, and but it's a simple, very simple thing. There's not like really rebuild kits for it, but see, what happens is you got to push it back in there, because over time they'll get bound out, and then they'll stick to everything except for what they're supposed to. There we go. But if you ever have to do it and work on them, just remember, one's an inlet, one's an outlet. And I mean, they're pretty resilient. They're made of a good fuel resistant, but like right there, little diaphragm, they'll stick. And it's the same thing for this one. You just turn around, pop it out, clean it up. Sometimes what I like to do is soak it in Marvel's Mystery Oil, just let it sit there, put it back in there, but set it where it seats. Same with this one, get it back in there, set it where it seats, and you might have to pick it around a little bit until you find the sweet spot. Try not to damage, of course, you never want to damage anything. But this right here is the real reason why a lot of times you have hard starting on your guard tractors. And then basically what you do is just press it back down in there. Come over here, check you, make sure you don't have any perforations in here. Make sure everything's pretty much healthy. This one, she's got her age, but she still does pretty good. And then you put it back together. Yeah. Let's see. There we go. Just gotta remember. Put it back together. Put the 4 screws. I'm gonna work on this later anyways. This I just wanted to give you a quick tutorial, understanding what it looks like on the inside and how easy it is to kit them. The biggest thing is don't use carb cleaner and stuff in there. Just use like a mild oil. Get it in there. Marvel's Mist Oil works pretty good. But now, let's say that you're going to park it for 4 to 5 months. What I recommend is that in your last fuel tank that you have, put some Marvel's Mist Oil in there, but just a little bit, depending on how big your gas tank and all that. But put a little Marvel's Mist Oil in there. And what that does is it puts a nice little coating on here so that this and this does not stick. Because what happens is this piece right here, that part right there, when it sits on there, it will literally sit on here and it'll be glued kind of partially. I mean, not really glued, but it'll be stuck on there if it's not seated back there. Or what happens is those little diaphragms, and this is the biggest problem I found, is those little bitty, that little disc inside will stick. So then when it tries to do the siphon, when it's going in there, and well, what happens is it won't pull it. So now you put pressure into the fuel tank, like some people like to go ahead and go up to the gas cap and blow on that little hole, the breather hole, and push air into the tank, which then turns around, pushes air into the fuel line, which then will put air pressure and fuel pressure onto this. And sometimes it works, and then the gas will start coming in and it'll start working just fine. That's great and all, but if you want to keep going back there and blowing on your gas tank to pressurize it, hey, knock yourself out. But if not, just go ahead. Usually it has 2 screws sitting up here. You'll want to get a new disc, gasket going up here. And you just go ahead and replace the gasket, clean this out, put it back on, and you're good to go.